Welcome back to the MovieBabble podcast. This is our first podcast of 2022, which is kind of surreal to say that we've made it to 2022 as a world, but we are here. Nick, joined by the man himself. How's it going?
Sir, we made it, barely. Still kind of shocked we're in 22 myself. But here we are. We're still talking movies. We're still doing it.
It felt weird to say. I didn't. I think it might be the first time I said 2022 out loud. So, but yeah, this is a good special podcast because we're going to be reminiscing on the year that was 2021 and just kind of going through a bunch of things that happened in the world of film, as well as just our favorite and least favorite movies of the year. I think it was a pretty overall strong year for film. I think there was a resurgence of a lot of different types of movies that obviously 2020 we didn't get to see a lot of the types of movies that did come out this year. So many of the delayed movies from 2020 we finally got to see in 2021. But it doesn't mean it was a normal year. 2021 was still anything but normal. And if anything, I think 2021 was even more, up in the air than 2020 was. I think there were so many things that happened this year that may not have happened. There were a lot of delays. Things got moved up weeks instead of months. I mean, it was just all over the place still. 2020 was kind of a dead zone. 2021 was kind of a sporadic, chaotic zone, So, Nick, just at a glance, how was 2021 for you in film?
Yeah, I feel like in recent years I've gotten away from figuring out if it's a good or bad year because I've just gotten more into my own weirdness and I just scour the internet and everywhere for cool films that I can watch. So there's always good stuff. You just got to be able to find it. And I think this year is key for that because it's like No Way Home, the only movie that did well in the box office, right? So you were left to your own devices and just finding good movies that you really liked. So I feel like I did a decent job at it. There's still a bunch I haven't seen. I still haven't seen Memoria or Celine Sciamma's Petite Maman and a bunch of others. But I liked a lot of movies this year. I'm still kind of putting together my top 10 list before I try to write that and put that on the website. But I really like the movies I've seen this year, and I thought there was a lot of really good stuff. So I'm content. Not with the world, but I'm content with movies.
Yeah, I think I agree. It certainly was an interesting year, just even at the box office. But just out the gate, this year started wild because we had the Oscars in April, which is probably one of the latest that we'll ever have the Oscars. I know this year's March, so it's 1 month, but that's a key month when you're talking about the awards. That one extra month, you can really feel it.
Yeah, who knows what happens because Omicron is here probably to stay. So if it gets pushed back to April, I'm just gonna hate myself because I'm gonna have to talk about being in the Ricardos for a few more weeks, and it's just gonna be the worst thing ever. So yeah, you really can feel every single day.
Initially, whenever the Oscars announced the March 27 date for here 2022, I was thinking that's way too late. But now with the variant, it seems like the smartest move they've ever made.
Yeah,
they might
much.
avoid
Who knows?
delay with that date. But yeah, I mean, the year started off odd. We jumped back into this year with kind of starting the year with virtual festivals again, and then suddenly the spring came, and a lot of the areas in the world, not everywhere, unfortunately, but a lot of areas, vaccines became very accessible, and we saw in North America, COVID seemed to be receding to a point where studios started putting their things back out in theaters again. And besides Godzilla vs. Kong, we saw kind of the big start to the summer box office, which was probably the May 2/4 weekend with Cruella and A Quiet Place Part 2. I think that was probably the first indication that things are going to start coming out week after week. That was kind of the big kickoff. And then, the year kept going. And while there was a recovery, so to speak, at the box office, a lot of movies that we probably would have hoped would do better definitely did not do better. You can rifle off a ton just off the top of our heads. West Side Story, The Last Duel, they come to mind. Movies that may have done better, pre-pandemic. It sucks, but while I think those movies have a chance to improve in the years to come, those types of movies, I do think it's the start of a new normal for movies that aren't, big blockbusters.
Yeah, and we've been tracking this for forever, how it's just, No Way Home is probably like the only movie that's going to do well at the movies, and all these other kind of tweener movies aren't going to do as well. Because, yeah, there was like a little bit of hope there in like July where it was like, COVID's gone. But obviously not. And like people were getting vaccinated and people were going back to theaters. So it seems like theaters have like buoyed themselves and like they're not going to just all shutter their doors anytime soon. But, with COVID still like around, people are less likely to be like, let's take a chance on this weird movie and see it in theaters. They're going to wait for that, and they're going to be like, they're going to save their time for, I'm going to go see No Way Home, and that's the only risk of getting sick that I'll take and go into the theaters, and they'll wait for everything else to come home later on. So, yeah, it's just now every single showing is Spider-Man, except for like Licorice Pizza or anything else that's like out right now. So, yeah, it's accelerated that path where theaters are only going to show your big tentpole movies. So, which is a bummer for me, but I'll still find my weird stuff anyway, I guess.
Yeah. That's the thing too. I think obviously we have seen that shift come pretty quick this year, and COVID definitely ramped it up. But there were still a lot of movies that I wouldn't call, tent poles that I saw in theaters this year that kind of took me by surprise, uh, and I sort of fell in love with. One of the movies that I more recently will point to is, I mean, this isn't 2021. It is a 2021 film, but I saw it 3 days ago, and that's The Novice. Have you heard of The Novice?
I have. I haven't seen it though.
I absolutely love that movie, and went because, I mean, we're talking about COVID. Ontario, where I live, we shut down everything for 21 days as of this past week. So restaurants, theaters, everything, schools, 21 days. So I was like, I gotta rush out and see something before they close up. So I went to the art house theater near me, and I saw The Novice. I thought it was gonna be like me and like two other people. There were about a dozen people. That was solid, and the movie was phenomenal. So big shout out to The Novice for giving me a good trip to the theaters before they closed their doors. But I do think that there's still there's still a place for a lot of these smaller films to be in theaters, whether it be art house theaters. Or anywhere. And I do think we saw some successes from movies that aren't super huge. Like I think one that I point to is The Green Knight, which had a pretty solid box office run in July for the type of movie it was. Um, Even The French Dispatch, which saw diminishing returns from Grand Budapest Hotel, was still still made a sizable chunk of money at the box office in a crowded month of October as well. So I think there is still a place, but you're right. The acceleration is it's happened, and COVID has done that. Um, while at the same time, Spider-Man's breaking records and might cross $1.5 billion by the end of next week or something like that, which is just nuts.
Yeah, wild. Yeah, insane. Yeah, it's gonna, we're going to the two extremes, right? You're gonna go see your big superhero movies, or you're gonna go to your art house theater and see, I don't know, some foreign film. That's kind of what it's gonna be, and everything in between is just gonna be on streaming, or you'll figure it out. So, which is kind of a bummer, because I was looking back on some of the more fun like watches I had, and a couple of them were TV. So one I just watched, I was late to the game here, but Midnight Mass, Mike Flanagan's Midnight Mass, the limited series on Netflix, I thought was like amazing. And he's a director I'm really fond of, and that like Midnight Mass 10 years ago was probably just a movie. But I liked how it ended up on TV. But I'm worried for guys like, they're directors like that, who I think make really interesting stuff on a middle budget, who just kind of they're trying to figure out where their home is right now. And I also really loved Mayor of Easttown, and it was a really good Kate Winslet performance that 10 years ago, she probably gets some kind of Oscar nomination in the movie version of that. But, now she's on TV on HBO doing that. So that's the stuff that kind of scares me. And, like Steven Soderbergh is just out here being like, fuck it, I'll just make movies for HBO every year. And they're all great, but now no one pays attention to them. And now I feel like we all disrespect Steven Soderbergh a little bit, because he makes like one or two really good movies every year, and now no one just talks about them because they're just dumped on HBO Max. So that's the kind of thing that I worry about a little bit, and kind of like the expensive adult drama that I feel like I champion a lot on this podcast. So that's the stuff that I'm mostly worried about. But yeah, I still had some fun theater experiences, like going to theaters. You know, Marty's correct in that sense. There's a lot of fun to be had when you go to the movie theater. So
Yeah, honestly, I think a lot of most of my favorite watches this year have been in the theater, and I try to seek out as much as I can. One of them being, I think Mass was a wonderful theater experience. Um, as I said in my one of my little reviews here about this movie, it was just like there were four of us in the theater, and by the end you could hear everyone sniffling with from the tears, you know. And I thought that was it was such a unique theater moment. Then the very next night after that, I'm in a fully packed theater on the opening night of Dune, and it's just like a nuts experience. Um, it's a huge parallel there, but I was glad I got to experience the movies in both ways. Um, but yeah, it's an interesting conversation to have for sure. Um, I do want to jump into though, since this is a retrospective on 2021, some of the movies that we love the most, we disliked the most, that surprised us, or even some of our biggest disappointments. So firstly, let's jump into the movies that surprised us the most this year. So movies that maybe they were on our radar, maybe they weren't. We weren't expecting a ton out of them, but they definitely gave back a lot. Um, Nick, I'll throw it over to you to rattle some off there. What were some of the biggest surprises of the year for you?
yeah, one of the first one that came to mind for me was the Amusement Park. There's a George Romero movie that just came out this year that was on Shudder. I forget they found it. It's kind of like The Other Side of the Wind for Netflix a few years ago, where they just found this movie that was he made in the '70s. I think it was supposed to come out in '73, and they found it and restored it and just put it on Shudder, and it's amazing. It's like I don't even know how long it is. I think it's like 45 minutes or something like that, but it's terrific, and it's just like holy shit. Like how did we get this? And I feel like not a lot of people are talking about it, and I thought it was really terrific. But yeah, I really liked Pig too. Pig was surprising. You think it's going to be a Nick Cage, John Wick lost his pig movie, and then it turns into like a really profound movie on loss and like family and what that means to you. I thought that was really terrific. Matrix Resurrections, had no idea what that was going to be like. I was a little nervous, and then it turned out to be everything I would have wanted it to be, and it was a hilarious takedown of kind of what the Matrix franchise morphed into, and kind of like all the bad actors, and like red pilling has a very different kind of notion now than it does when 1999 when the first Matrix came out. So it was really fun to see Lana Wachowski kind of wrestle that back and kind of reclaim what the Matrix franchise was. So I really love that movie. Shiva Baby was a movie I had no idea. People said it was good, so I watched it. I thought it was terrific, and Rachel Sennott just gives like one of the best performances of the year in that movie. And Fred Melamed is in it, so I like it just because he's in it, just on principle. Um, and then I guess the last one, and we can come back later to some other ones I had if we want to, but I got to ride for my Malignant. Just the hilarious movie, James Wan just taking Warner Brothers money after he made them over $1 billion for Aquaman and said, I want to make this weird movie that no one will think is very good, but I wanted to make it, and it was one of the funniest things I've ever seen this year. So I love Malignant. Long live Gabriel. Just a terrific experience.
Long live Gabriel. Yeah, those are some good ones. Pig was one that, oh my God, yeah. That was probably like I think that was the second movie I saw when theaters reopened. Second or third when theaters reopened here. And that was amazing. Amazing movie still. Ends the year in my top five. Love Pig. Love Pig. Malignant. Great to shout out Malignant there. I knew you were going to. I knew that was going to happen.
He got to. It's just it's one of the ultimate, like a director has some cachet with the studio, and they were like, you made us a lot of money, so do whatever you want. And he's like, okay, and he runs with it, and he makes a batshit insane movie that is just so great. Yeah. So I just love James Wan being like, fuck you, I'm doing what I want here. It's just amazing.
100%. Shiva Baby is also another one that was probably one of the earlier movies I watched this year that I really loved. That's a good pick. For me, some of my most surprising, experiences were heading to the theater. Didn't watch a single trailer. Just knew it was the new release of the week, and I saw David Bruckner's The Night House.
It's a really good one.
starring Rebecca Hall, and it's easily one of my favorite movies of the year. I thought it was absolutely phenomenal. Didn't really know what I was getting into. Obviously, I didn't know anything about it beforehand. It just kind of went in, and yeah, that was a wonderful movie. Um, there's just so much there, so many layers to that movie, and I feel like it doesn't get the same respect that a lot of the more recent big horror movies are that have turned in great performances like Hereditary, Midsummer, um, even Us to an extent. But I think this movie deserves to be in the conversation with those as one of the better horror movies of the last few years. I think Rebecca Hall gave one of the best performances of the year, and the movie's just terrifying in a way that's it not just what's on the screen, but just a lot of what's in the writing as well. And the movie's so cool as well with the way it's shot. I don't want to give away too much because I feel like a lot of it is great to experience
Yeah.
for the first time, but there's so many cool things, cool shots in that movie that play into the narrative as well. So The Night House is definitely one of my more surprising movies of the year. And also speaking of Rebecca Hall, I have to put Passing on here as one of the movies that surprised me the most.
Yeah.
Love Passing. I think Tessa Thompson and Ruth Negga were phenomenal in it, and it's on Netflix. So I mean, there's no excuse for people not to check it out, especially with Don't Look Up becoming like one of the most watched movies ever or something like that. So give
Sure. Why
some
not?
respect to Passing.
Right next to Red
Yeah,
Notice, right?
yeah. Give some. Yeah, that's where it should be, I guess. Give some respect to Passing though, and check that one out because it's really good directorial debut from Rebecca Hall, and just a really good movie overall. Another one here that might be controversial, but and that's because of who I'm talking to, which is you, and that is Tick Tick
Oh no.
Boom.
Oh no. Sorry.
I think
Nope.
Tick Tick Boom. There's a story in there that I think that really can consume and absorb anyone. I think there's a lot in there to love, and I think Andrew Garfield gives a phenomenal performance. For me, it's the best musical of the year in the year of the musical. I think it's the best one. I think it was. I think it was the most interestingly made. I think it was super flashy, and completely took me off guard because I had no idea what to expect with that one. And lastly, got to go with Benedetta. Benedetta is amazing, and
I love this movie.
I mean the reviews were solid enough coming out of Cannes. I think it was at Cannes. Yeah, I think the reviews were solid enough coming out of there, but still, I didn't know if I was gonna love it. I know that there were people that loved it, people that didn't. I thought it was phenomenal. Currently in my top 10 of the year. Definitely check out Benedetta. Um, gotta love Paul Verhoeven. He's another animal.
I just I just love it. He's just out here continuing to be kind of an edge lord, but also not because all of it's satire and it's just terrific. I love his movies. I think he's great. I love that. I feel like there's like 12 production companies ahead of this movie. Like he just finds money however he can to make his movies now. It's just amazing. I just continue to wish the best for him.
Yeah,
So great.
that's hilarious. 12. Yeah, you're right. There were so many. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another movie I wanted to mention because it was surprising in a way that um, it's not conventionally surprising. Like the movie was well received and it's from an auteur, in Wes Anderson. But The French Dispatch is one that I have to put on for my most surprising of the year because um, I had never, fallen in love with his work over the years. I think I've always really enjoyed it. I think he's made some, all timers, but he's never really got me in the heart. I've always really liked his movies, but The French Dispatch is so good. Absolutely fell in love with it. From the moment that the credits started rolling, I was like, I gotta watch that again, and it was phenomenal. The Blu-ray just came in last night, so I'll definitely will watch it again. But yeah, absolutely love that movie, and it's surprising in the way that I knew it was going to be good. He doesn't put out bad movies, but I didn't think I'd fall in love with it, and that was the movie that really finally I think I'm a Wes head now.
Yeah, I had the exact same reaction to you, where I was surprised because I feel like, in terms of general reaction to his movies, I feel like this was like everyone was considering it like lower tier Wes Anderson, and like they were like, I can't really get emotionally involved to this movie. at all, because I guess because it's like anthologies or whatever. But I was like so moved watching this movie. It's also one of my favorite movies of the year. Like it just, I thought it was hilarious in the way that Wes Anderson does that, and all. I thought just some amazing performances. I thought Adrian Brody was just fucking hilarious in that movie. Jeffrey Wright
So good.
is like one of my most like favorite performances of the year. I thought he was unbelievable and unbelievably moving, and yeah, I just thought there was like beneath all of like the really fast talking, super literary like words that all these people are using. There's like a profound like sadness to all these people because
Yeah.
they're basically like I'm rarely lonely because the one thing I love to do just kind of leads to that kind of life, and so I have nothing else to do but to pour myself into my work and do it as well as possible. And I just thought it was just really moving. You know, I teared up a few times. I thought like it's just him on like crack in terms of all this the symmetry and like the production design. Like I loved it. There's so many great little nuggets to it that I want to return to over and over again.
Yeah. I think it certainly is just one of the better movies of the year. And I think you're right. The conversation when it first hit the festival circuit was that this is a good movie, but it's Wes Anderson at his most, Wes Anderson, and it's kind of in the middle or to the bottom of his filmography. But I think the opposite. It's one of my favorites of his films. I've seen a good amount of them now, and it was just so good, so good. Uh, can't wait to check it out again. Um, I like that we had the same reaction though, because I feel like there have been a few people I've seen that had a similar reaction to a movie that going into it I was not expecting to fall in love with.
Yeah, I think Colin was on this pod saying he just did not connect to it at all. So it's just I don't know. I really fell for it. I thought maybe I was in the right mood that day. I just thought it was really really terrific. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, it was great.
yeah. It was.
I did want to mention a few more movies. I think I'm the only person who liked Mainstream, the the Andrew Garfield social media movie, which is at times hilariously bad, and I think like intentionally really good, and it follows a bunch of horrible people who are either just like vapid and shallow or also just like unbelievably stupid. And I think that movie captures something like unique and special about the people who are on social media all the time, even if it is like hilariously outdated in terms of how it captures like YouTube and all that stuff. So I thought I was one of the few people who liked that movie, and I was surprised I did. And a weird one I wanted to throw out was A Glitch in the Matrix, which was a documentary by Rodney Asher, who also did the Room 237 movie, which is he's like trying to like unravel all of the like conspiracy theories that came out of The Shining. And I thought that was a really fascinating movie as well. But this is another movie where like it's kind of about simulation theory, but then it's not at all. Like it kind of goes into who are the people that believe in simulation theory and why they think that way, and it's a really fascinating, just psychological study of the people who kind of make these false realities for themselves. So I think it got like panned out of Sundance. I think a lot of people, I didn't get a chance to see it there, but a lot of other people did and said they did not like it. And I think because they thought they were getting a straightforward simulation theory documentary, but it's just not that at all. So I thought that movie was really interesting, and I don't think it was this worthy of all the hate it got. So just wanted to throw that one out there.
Yeah, yeah. That's wonderful. Let's flip now to our, I guess, least favorite movies of the year. I don't think we should end on least favorites. I think we should go there now. I think now is when we should jump into that discussion of some of our least favorites of the year. Um, I know you have a lot to talk about. I know you're a big hater, so
I am. Yes, continue.
so I'll kind of kick it off. Let you gather your thoughts here. But I mean, where do I start? I think there were a lot of movies this year that were good. I think this year was a really solid year for film. But to jump in with one of the worst of the year, I think it has to be Space Jam: A New Legacy. I think you
Yep.
got to mention that movie. It's didn't think it was going to be good, but it was really bad and really went in directions that I didn't expect it to. I think I was expecting really a straightforward legacy sequel, and what it was an advertisement, and um, I will say it was funny though, in a bad way. I laughed quite a bit at this movie. I don't know how you feel about Space Jam, but
No, I hate this movie so much. Like LeBron being put into Casablanca just needs to be hurled into the sun. I hated it so much.
oh gosh. I think Thunder Force is one that I also had to throw in there.
I had that on my list
Yeah,
too.
Thunder Force is not a good movie. You got to get Octavia Spencer out of there. Even Melissa McCarthy, but she's doing some charity work for her husband, I believe, with this movie.
Yeah, she just needs to stop working with her
Yeah.
husband. Every time she does, the movie's terrible. Like Ben Falcone seems like a nice guy, but he just needs to go away.
And when I was thinking about worst of the years, I was shocked that this was from this year because it feels like eons ago that I watched Thunder Force.
Yeah, me
I don't
too.
know why, but it feels like early pandemic, not early 2021. I don't know. Time is
Yeah.
broken, but yeah, that's got to be another one. And I think I'll probably also throw in because I don't think there were too many movies I absolutely hated this year. But if you're ever wanting to watch something bad on Netflix, I think this was probably one of the first movies of the year that I thought was just god awful, and that was Deadly Illusions. Um,
What is
Not even
this movie?
popular, but it was like trending on Netflix on the top 10 when it first came out. And it's one of those Netflix movies that's kind of a thriller and it has like twists. So I feel like maybe people liked it for that. General audiences maybe were interested in, the twists of Deadly Illusions. But I got to throw it on there because it was the first movie of the year that I watched and said, this is awful. So Deadly Illusions. Definitely give it a watch.
I don't think I'm going to. One of my, I'm not a big resolution guy, but one of mine for this year is just not to watch as many bad movies. Because, like, life's short. Well, like, what am I doing? Just, like, putting on Thunder Force on a Sunday afternoon when I could be hanging out with people. So, I feel like I also had, like, like life things happen this year. So it was, like, when I was watching movies, it was less time spent on watching, like scouring for really bad movies. So, that was probably good for just my well-being in general.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, second you one, Thunder Force and Space Jam, just to get those out of my face. I will say that I feel like we were both fairly positive on Free Guy when it came out, and I've come back around to saying like this is just an abomination of a movie.
I think it's okay.
We'll disagree there, sir. I don't know what it was. Maybe I was in too good of a mood that day, but I've come back around and noticed how soulless that movie is. Same with Red Notice. Ryan Reynolds on autopilot this year, I guess. Red Notice is just really bad, and it's just an excuse for The Rock and Ryan Reynolds to like shill their gin and vodka, or what's tequila for The Rock, yeah. So like there's like very specific scenes in this movie where The Rock is at a bar and they pour his Terramana tequila, and like the label is facing the camera, and it's like, all right, I see what this movie was for. So I hated that movie. It was just not very fun. Remember Cherry?
Oh, God, yeah.
Remember when that came out this year? The gaping asshole shot that happened this year in that movie. That was I still can't believe that was a thing that happened. The Russos were like, cool, we did Endgame, now let's go make Cherry. So that was a terrible movie.
There's something else.
Remember Music as well? That was also
Never
this year.
watched it, thankfully.
Oh my god, please don't. It's kind of like one of the more baffling, terrible movies of the last few years where for I think 3 years people were like telling Sia, please don't make this movie. It's a very bad idea, and she was like, no, I'm gonna do it.
Ego was too much.
And it turned out to be one of the most bafflingly terrible and like just amazingly offensive movies to come out of the last few years. It's just very unbelievably terrible. Dear Evan Hansen was another one. Just watch a 40-year-old just ruin people's lives for 2 hours.
How about
Think about it.
How about that one?
Yeah, that's not good either.
Mark Waters,
that one
he's
is
fallen
like
from grace because I mean, I gotta say, Mean Girls and Freaky Friday are two of the better teen-ish movies of the of past 20, 30 years. I think those two movies are great, and to see that he's come all the way around to this 20 years later is very sad.
Yeah, I feel like with He's All That, I was like, I know what this is going into it. So yeah, it's awful, but I didn't really have a strong reaction to it because I was like, this is probably just going to be a big star vehicle for what's her face. I can't remember her name. What is her
Addison
name?
Rae.
Addison Rae. I was like, why can't I think of her name? It shows how much how I don't care at all. But yeah, I was like, it's going to be a star vehicle for her, and it's basically her playing herself as like an influencer. And I was just like, well, I'm here watching this movie, and it's going to be over eventually. And it was. So that was my viewing experience there. The last one I want to mention is, I think, my least favorite movie. I had such a negative, just a gut reaction to this, and that's Ghostbusters Afterlife. I think it's just the worst example of a legacy sequel, even worse than Space Jam 2. I despised everything about this movie. It's like doing the weird Amblin, like wistful nostalgia thing for like the original Ghostbusters, which is like a hilarious self joke, and it's like, wow, isn't it funny that all these schlub janitors are just like they're go hunting ghosts? It's just a bizarre, like horrible, like, hey, remember this? Remember the blasters? Remember Slimer? Remember when Bill Murray put a Crunch Bar in Egon's like jacket? It's just horrible. I hated this movie so much. And the worst part is that this movie was like one of the few movies that did well this year.
Yeah.
And it's just, I literally hated every single frame of this movie. I thought it was terrible. Paul Rudd trying, I guess. Carrie Coon also trying. Love both those people, but this is just like a horrible, fake, emotional retread. It really angered me. So, yeah, that movie was just awful.
Yeah, I remember when I think it first came out, I went on Letterboxd, and you were like one of the first reviews I saw on my feed. It was like a 0.5 star. I was like,
it's just so bad on so many
I
levels.
still haven't seen it.
It's literally the worst case scenario of member berries and weird fake nostalgia for a movie that was it's weird. The tone of this movie, it feels like it's trying to be like a Spielberg Amblin thing, like I mentioned, and that's just not what Ghostbusters is. The original Ghostbusters is like, I don't want this to like leap into like a weird like not my Ghostbusters and have a rehash of the 2016 conversation, but it was just like that movie is like the movie like the fact that the movie exists at all is the joke of the first Ghostbusters, and like Bill Murray could not give a shit in that movie, and it's hilarious. And this movie has like this weird longing, loving feeling for that movie, and it's Jason Reitman, so it's tip of the cat to his dad, so I can understand him wanting to do it, but it's just terrible. And then there's mini Stay Puft Marshmallow Men in a Walmart, and it's just like the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. Just terrible product placement. Right. It's just, I'm done. Let's
go to some more negativity with our most disappointing movies of the year. A couple of our most disappointing. I'll start. Give you a little break after Ghostbusters.
Yeah, I need a host down after that. I'm struggling over here.
Now, just a disclaimer. I don't think I dislike any of these movies. I don't think I hate any of these movies particularly. I just think these are movies that I really wanted to enjoy much more than I did, and movies that I wanted to, appreciate a lot more than I did. And it pains me to say, but I'll jump right into it. I'll peel off the Band-Aid quick, and Candyman falls here. As
that was on my list, though.
Yeah,
on my list too.
It sucks because I don't think it's a bad movie. I don't think it's an awful movie at all. I think it's a fine movie, but and there's good things in the movie as well. I think from the opening credit roll, the film just captures your attention right away. Right, the upside down cinematography of Chicago, and just the score. It opens so good, and Yahya Abdul-Mateen is phenomenal, as he always is. I think the imagery is really good. I just think it has had an awful screenplay. I just think it was really poorly written, and it similar to, I guess, the Ghostbusters thing. Don't want to fall into that. Not my Candyman, but I don't think it followed in the legacy of the first one in the way that it should have to make a good movie. I think it forgot a lot of what made the first one great. Um, the filmmaking's great. The performances are great. As I said, the imagery is phenomenal. I think the movie has all the right vibes. It has all the right aesthetic. It has all the right, um, all the right looks. But I just think it's the core of it is just not good.
Yeah, I kind of hate the like the show don't tell, or the show don't tell rule, because great filmmakers tell you things all the time. Like Spike Lee like tells you stuff all the time, and it's amazing. So I don't really like to describe that, but I feel like this movie is it's really just like rattling off like its beliefs on societal issues over and over again, which it's one of those where it's like I agree about everything the movie is saying, about racial divide and like gentrification, all this stuff. It's like I agree with you wholeheartedly, but you're not really weaving it into the story particularly well. It's almost like someone is just looking straight at camera and telling you all these things. So I just didn't really vibe with it for that very reason. I think the third act of this movie is like shockingly bad to me. It weirdly just it feels like, because this movie was pushed back like from last year because of like COVID and everything, and like the second trailer, we go back to the first trailer, and there's just scenes in there that aren't in the movie, and I wonder if this was like chopped down to something
Oh
different
yeah,
than it was at the beginning, because it's less than it's like 85 minutes long too, right? So it just there was something weird about this movie. I have a feeling that there was stuff that was chopped
yeah.
out of this, because it just turns into a bizarre third act that doesn't really make sense with what you've seen
The
previously.
last 10 minutes
So I
feel
don't know.
like it's like at 10 times speed. Like the last 10 minutes are just
Yeah, it's so weird.
it's ridiculous.
Like you go down like a weird corridor, and it's like, wait, like what happened? Like this turned into a different movie
Yeah.
all of a sudden. It's very weird.
Yeah, it's too bad too because it was one of my most anticipated movies of the year, and as I said, I don't think it's all bad. I think there's a lot to like with this movie, but I just the way it ends and just at the pace it ends too. It's there's no room to breathe, and it kind of leaves you with a bad taste. So that's one of my most disappointing of the year. Another one that we differ with though is House of Gucci, which I finally saw like 2 days ago. It was like this was actually my last theater watch before they shut down theaters here for 3 weeks. Um, I don't know. I really dug The Last Duel, and I was thinking, this could be a big year for Ridley, and for a lot of people, it was. A lot of people like both, but House of Gucci for me was kind of a waste of a phenomenal cast, and I think that a lot of the issue is while the cast is mostly fine, Jared Leto aside, I just think the story was just kind of uninteresting when it could have been really interesting. I think the movie is um, far too long, and it could have done a lot more for me, especially just someone who was so excited for the movie. Another one most disappointing of the year for me, regrettably, this is one that I saw the same day I saw French Dispatch, so it's like complete opposite. Um, had like a quadruple feature at the cinema on Halloween, so that was fun. And ended the day with Last Night in Soho, which
This one's on my
it
list
was
too.
disappointing. And same as Candyman, I think there's a lot that's good in the movie. I think Thomas Mackenzie's like one of my favorite people right now, and Anya Taylor Joy is Anya Taylor Joy. She's great. Um, there's a lot of cool callbacks in the film. Um, it's well shot. I think it's got the style, got the Edgar Wright flair. But at the same time, I think it suffers from that issue at the core, where you don't really know what this movie wants to be, and the movie doesn't really know what it wants to be. And similarly to Candyman, it's got a questionable third act at the least. So I don't hate the movie, I don't, but I just don't think it's all that great. Um, yeah, I think that those are some of the more profound disappointments I had this year, just because they were movies that I was so excited for. Like there are a few other movies that I was kind of excited for that didn't land for me. I guess Reminiscence will be one of them, which is who's expecting that to be good anyways? But I was, and it wasn't. But It's on a different level than some of these other movies. Even being the Ricardos to an extent, like I don't mind the last couple of Sorkin outings. I think Molly's Game is good. I think Trial was pretty good. Being the Ricardos is just one of the most boring movies of the year. It's just baffling, and for someone as talented as Sorkin, the "Don't gaslight me" line from Nicole Kidman's Lucille Ball is. I mean, you might have to question: is he a good writer? I mean, he is, but
Yeah, and then J. Edgar Hoover saves the day at the end, and you're like, what is
yeah.
happening? It's so
So
weird.
so that's got to be some of them. Another one too, more under the radar one was Netflix's Things Heard and Seen with Amanda Seyfried, which I only say it's disappointing because I thought the first half of the movie was really good and the second half was really bad. So that's one that I'd throw in there. How about you though? Give me some of your most disappointing of the year.
Yeah, Last Night in Soho was in there. I kind of lumped that in too with another movie that was disappointing to me, False Positive, which I think both movies just needed a female director to handle their subject matter. I think the Last Night in Soho kind of like like puts itself in a corner at the end. I just think it really does not say anything particularly interesting or insightful about. It's like looking at sexual assault back in it's like an anti nostalgia movie where it's looking at how terrible the '60s were, and it's just what it's doing with the like sexual assault and its main characters, and it's just not. It kind of gets gross at the end personally, and I kind of felt the same way about False Positive as well. I just don't think those movies work particularly well for what they're trying to go after. Um, I have two other weird choices here. I put Slacks on here. Have you heard
I
of
have
this
not.
movie? The Killer Jeans movie that came out this year. I was so excited to watch this movie. Probably the only one because it's a killer. It's a movie about killer jeans. It's exactly what
That's
you
kind
think
of
it is. It's
exciting.
just
Yeah,
like a pair.
that's
It's a pair of jeans just walking around and killing people. And I really wanted to like this movie so much. And it's just okay. And I think that's like one of the worst crimes of the year. And how do you make a movie about killer jeans just okay? Like how is that possible? Like it's kind of just boring in the end, and it's also like fairly racist, so it's not great in that respect either. The other one is a really bizarre choice that I don't think anyone else saw. Is a small Canadian horror movie called Come True. I don't know if you've heard of this movie either. But it got good reviews. I think I had like Fantasia last year. Saw the trailer. It looked really cool. And I'm watching this movie, and the first 45 minutes of it are kind of unbelievable. You're watching, and you're like, wow, like this kind of is one of the most inventive horror movies I've seen in forever. So it's about this girl who she's kind of a runaway, and she puts herself into like this sleep study because she's really having trouble sleeping, and it kind of like descends into like this really creepy dream and imagery, and like her dreams start to like come into play with her like when she's awake and you don't know it's real and whatnot, and she starts to be freak out, and like the imagery is unbelievable. It's kind of like it's like a blend of like 80s analog technology and futuristic stuff. I think it's so like well mounted, and the cinematography and it's amazing. And then the ending of this movie is one of the most inexplicable things I've seen in years. Like it takes the hardest left turn at the end, and you're like, wow, like this movie just went off the deep end,
sounds like a theme.
and ruined
Yeah.
everything. Yeah, it's just it was just so cool. I love a weird little Canadian horror movie. There's something different about those. Then they come out. It just has all the style you could ever want, and then the ending is just the most bizarre thing you've ever seen.
Yeah.
So just wanted to throw that one out there
Yeah.
too.
Interesting. Yeah. So I mean, for the most part this year, I don't think many of the movies I was super hyped for let me down. Uh, at the end, I mean, there were a few, but overall, I was pretty satisfied with most of what I saw this year. Even one that I think could have had a lot of variation between whether it was going to be really good or really bad. Because I thought the trailer was good, the premise was cool, and the cast is phenomenal, and that's The Harder They Fall. But I mean, I think it was his first feature film, and it's always, you never know what you're going to get. I think that movie, that's another really good movie this year that I think was solid. Another one is Zola, which everyone was talking about Zola before it came out. turned out to be pretty solid as well. But yeah, I mean, there are not a lot of movies that disappointed me big time, but there are certainly a few. Uh, so pouring out for those movies. Too bad. Yeah, I like your obscure picks there that disappointed you because I feel like it's usually disappointments come from the biggies, you know. So I mean, you're really seeking out some interesting stuff.
Yeah, it's just like it's a movie about killer genes. Like I'm so excited. You just hear that. Like I'm so excited to see how that movie turns out, and it's a bummer, man. Like it just did not turn out very
Yeah.
good. Very very
Ooh,
sad.
another one actually that I'd throw in for disappointing is Prisoners of the Ghostland, which for me,
Oh damn! I like this
I don't
movie.
know, like love Pig, and then I'm like, okay, more Nick Cage this year, wonderful. Even the vibes were all good because this art house theater near me, they love Nick Cage, and they're just like they got pictures of him up on the wall around the theater, and they're playing it. There's like it's a packed house. I didn't like it at all. I don't know.
Oh, I love this movie. Just Nick Cage yelling testicle at the top of his lungs. Like, come on! Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, I
Like,
did.
it's the best.
It's I don't know. It was. I mean, maybe I should have kept my expectations in check, but didn't love it.
I get it because the movie literally makes no sense. Like, it makes no sense at all. But that's kind of the point. I feel like because it's like this bizarre blending of Western and Eastern like kind of like vibes going on. So and it blends to the point where it literally just makes no sense. Like you're like, wait, there's like a scene missing here. Like, wait, he's back in the ghost land. What's happening? But I think that idea and there's weird like there's weird like allegories for the atomic bomb in there too. I think there's a lot. There's more to unpack to it that like for where it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for a specific reason. So I thought it was fun. And then also, Nick Cage gets his testicles blown off, and it's hilarious, and he yells, and it's great.
Okay, fair enough.
So
Fair enough.
sometimes I'm a simple man. I just want to see that happen on
Yeah.
screen, and I did, and that was all I needed.
Yeah, I hear you. So jumping in now, just to wrap things up, is let's end it on a high note with our favorites of 2021. Just a few of those movies that, bar none, these are at the top of the year, or top of your list at the end of the year. Nick, I'll let you open up with some of your favorites of the year.
Yeah, there's still a bunch I
Me
really
too.
need to see. So this is definitely not set in stone, but Titan, I've been saying a lot on this podcast. Really enjoyed, really terrific. The Mitchells versus the Machines, I thought was unbelievable. Like one of the better animated movies. That and Luca, I thought were two of the better animated movies of the last few years. The French Dispatch we already talked about. I thought it was terrific. The Power of the Dog, also I thought was amazing. I just saw Licorice Pizza yesterday, and holy shit, what a banger Licorice Pizza is! Just one amazing needle drop after another, just immaculate vibes. They're so good. It's another anti-nostalgia movie where it's like enticing, like it's so mesmerizing how like cool everything is, and you take a step back and you're like, wait, all of this is horrible. And it's I thought it was really like well crafted. It doesn't really like to spoon feed you a lot of what it's going after. I thought that was really really impressive. The Worst Person in the World, I like adored. Like Rana Reemsva is like it's like one of the best female performances I've seen in the last few years. I thought she was just so mesmerizing in this movie. Kind of one of those where I think you could show this movie to anyone, and they would really like it. I think it's very accessible, but also just like really sweet and honest. And then the end of this movie just hits you like a hammer to the head. It is just so powerful. I thought that was terrific. About Endlessness was another movie I really really liked. It's a hilarious ultimate flex to make a movie called About Endlessness, only 75 minutes long. It's terrific. I don't want to really spoil much more about that movie, but I thought it was great. And two more that are a little off the beaten path here. I thought Barry Jenkins, he made the Underground Railroad this year for Amazon, and that's like one of the best things I've watched this year. I don't even know, like it's a limited series, but it's also not. It's really just like a 10-hour movie, and it's unbelievable. It's like one of the best things I've watched, and Barry Jenkins is like one of the best people working. But he made this 50-minute like visual essay called The Gaze, and he just dropped it on Vimeo, and it's like when they were on the set of the Underground Railroad, he would just tell people to stay still, and he would just move the camera around them and take like these almost like paintings of these people, and it's an amazing score. Nicholas Britell did the score to the show, and he also does his scores in this like essay as well. And I think it was like it's one of the most like moving things I've watched this year, and it's like the cast just staying still in a cotton field or wherever they are, and it really works with the themes of the show itself. So it's kind of like a twofer, you know.
Yeah.
You support The Gaze, you support the Underground Railroad as well. And then my last one, which is currently my favorite movie of the year, is called Last and First Men, which kind of is the exact same thing as The Gaze almost, where it's an audio-visual essay almost, but I would contend it's like one of the most cinematic things I watched this year. But this movie was made by Johan Johansson, who was a terrific composer. He did Sicario and Mandy and all these great scores in the 2010s and before. And he died back in 2018. But right before he died, he made this, Last and First Men, which is, I've been looking forward to this for forever. I don't know why. I just really like Johan Johansson. And I've been hearing about this movie for a while, and it's unbelievable. It's an adaptation of a science fiction novel, and it's literally just an hour and 10 minutes of the camera kind of slowly panning in on these really bizarre monolithic Yugoslavian statues, while Tilda Swinton in voiceover, disembodied voiceover, tells you about the future 2 billion years from now and like all they've achieved and how they're about to die. And it's this kind of like unbelievably profound like look into legacy and like death and the end of all things. And it's like one of the most poignant and unbelievable things I watched, like frankly, like of the last few years. So I really implore people to watch it. It's you can find it online through the Metrograph. I thought it was just like amazing, and it's like it's like pure poetry. Like Tilda Swinton will just say like one sentence, and it's one of the most profound things you've ever heard in your life. So it's just, yeah, I fell in love with this thing. It's just terrific, and yeah, it's amazing. It's really good.
Definitely missed that, man. Very taken too soon.
Yeah, it's just he was bound to be one of the best composers like in the industry, probably. Like, you know, he's worked with Denis Villeneuve a lot. I think he did the score for Prisoners as well. But he was all over the place, and yeah, it's a bummer. It's like, you know, like Mandy is like one of the most bizarre movies ever, and it includes Nick Cage in a chainsaw fight, and he somehow made that movie like super sweet and emotional with his score. So he was just really talented, and the score here is just, yeah, I buried the lead. It's amazing just listening to his music in this, and it really powers everything. Like you'll get emotional just looking at statues, and it's like, why am I tearing up? This is so weird. But he was a talent, and I feel like this is like a really good capper to his legacy, and also, you know, just humanity's legacy in general, because we're all going to die someday. So
Man, deep. What a guy. Whew. How do I top that one? So let's jump into my favorites of the year. So I think I have to get kind of throw out seconds there to a lot of what you mentioned, specifically The Power of the Dog, which I saw at TIFF and like haven't gotten it out of my head since. Absolute masterpiece of a movie, The Power of the Dog. I think Jane Campion, she directs the hell out of that movie. It is such a visual film in terms of its storytelling, and I love that it popped off big time on Netflix. Also have to give seconds there to The Worst Person in the World, which is my favorite of the year, for sure. Another one I saw at TIFF, and I can't wait to see it again. Absolutely love that movie. But to kind of throw in some ones that you didn't mention, I don't believe, Mike Mills's Come On, Come On, which I finally saw. Like
great movie.
Yeah, I finally watched it on New Year's Day, actually. And
that's a good movie to watch on New Year's Day.
Yeah, I made it my first one of the year.
That's a really good one.
So I made it the first one of
this.
Yeah,
that's a really good choice, because it's really hopeful and sweet. That's a good one.
Yeah, it's It's good, and there's so many cool moments in this movie. Love the little, the breaks in the film for the little interview segments with the children.
Oh, they're so good.
This movie's so good. I showed it to I made my parents watch it. I made my cousin watch it. Cousin loved it. Parents thought it was interesting. um, I don't know. It was absolutely beautiful, and certainly one of my favorites from last year. And I do hope more people check it out.
Yeah, it's also like you forget how nice it is just to see Joaquin Phoenix act like a regular person, you know? Because like he comes off of Joker and all of his other demented performances, like The Master and all these other things, and here he's just a guy. He's just the
And
uncle,
he's so good.
and he's really sweet and nice, and it's just oh my
Yeah.
gosh, like really
Yeah.
good.
Phenomenal.
Woody Norman too as the kid, just yeah,
Yeah,
unbelievable.
very good. Next one I got to go with is Mass, which I think is a movie that
Another really good one.
every few minutes, it's essentially one long scene, right? Because it's just a conversation between four people around the table, and for most of the runtime, that's where the movie takes place. There's a little bit at the beginning and the end that's a little different, but that's pretty much what this movie is. It's a hard thing to pull off to make something like that still remain captivating. Um, to have people sit around, for 45 minutes of this movie, essentially, and just chat about some very deep
Oh yeah.
and heavy things. It's hard to keep that captivating, and Fran Kranz did in his first feature film. This movie, I think, is one of the best of the year, with phenomenal performances throughout. And there's one point in this movie, pretty early on, but there's one point in the movie where everything kind of clicked for me, and I realized, yeah, this is something special. So, Mass is definitely one of them. Also, got to shout out The Green Knight, because I mean, what a badass movie. Love The Green Knight.
Oh, why didn't I include The Green Knight? It's one of my favorite movies of the year.
We all love The Green Knight. I mean, who doesn't?
It's just
It was
terrific.
so good. I'd love to see the initial cut, because it was supposed to come out obviously in 2020, and got delayed a whole year due to COVID. And David Lowery apparently re-edited the whole thing during that year. So I'd love to see the first cut of the movie just for fun. I want to see what the differences were.
Yeah.
I wonder if it was a
It's
yeah.
funny because the editing is like kind of what makes that movie,
It's so
you know? Because
methodical, right?
it's this weird journey that's slow. It doesn't make sense, kind of a lot of the times. It's dreamlike. So I wonder what it seems like it was just a different vision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like there had to have been something different there. Also got a shout out because this didn't come out till February here. I think in most places really, but Judas and the Black Messiah, which definitely one of the best
Hmm.
acted movies of the year. So I gotta shout that one out. But yeah, those are for me the movies that I'd say are some of the best of this year. I definitely have to check out a bunch more. Like January is always the hustle month of like, what did I miss last year?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Me
let's
too.
watch as much as we can that we didn't get to see. And obviously, there's those movies that come out in one hidden theater in LA, and then you got to find them in January or February. um, but yeah, that's those are my favorites of the year, and yeah, I think it was all in all a really good year for film, and I'm looking forward to 2022, because I think uh, it'll continue to be strong and hopeful, and there's a lot that's looking cool that'll come out this year, and we'll definitely do a podcast soon on our most anticipated of 2022
Yeah. Can I shout out a few more
for sure.
movies real
Rifle
quick
them off.
this year? I really love Bo Burnham's Inside, which was I feel like we all considered it a movie, and then it wasn't a movie anymore for some reason. But I thought that was really clever. Identifying Features I thought was amazing. It's a movie that I don't really want to say much more about, but I thought that was terrific. Like I said earlier, don't disrespect Steven Soderbergh. No Sudden Move was awesome. Red Rocket was terrific as well. Drive My Car, really good. I'm just really amazed of all the critical love it's getting. It's kind of for a movie that's 3 hours long, and it centers around a very bizarre multinational reconstruction of Uncle Vanya. Is just it's very weird, and I'm really happy that movie is getting love that it's getting. It's really good. And then last one, is a movie I saw at Sundance this past year, and it released really small, I think, in New York. It's called I Was a Simple Man. Really terrific. I don't really want to say much about it because there's not really a plot to it, but if I kind of explain it, it kind of gives away a lot of what's happening in the movie. So I thought that was just a terrific movie. Kind of has a lot in common with like a Peach of Versicles movies. I thought it was just very terrific. So I wanted to just throw that one out there.
Yeah, I'll rifle a few more off as well. I think Souvenir Part 2 is one of the...
Oh, I still haven't seen Souvenir Part 2.
Really good.
I'm really looking forward to it.
Weirdly very different from Part 1 and very similar at the same time. I mean, it make for a phenomenal back-to-back. I watched them 2 days apart, but really good. Also got a shout out yet again. I'll throw out The Novice, Lauren Hadaway's first movie. Really good. Nightmare Alley also amazing. I really love Nightmare Alley, which I hope more people watch it in the weeks to come. Love the original. I was able to check that out on the Criterion Channel. This one also I really enjoyed. And even as you didn't see it, but Petite Maman is one of the better movies I saw this year, bar none for sure.
Dying to see it.
And then I have to throw in there Guy Ritchie's Wrath of Man, which you ever watch that? No. So good, so good.
Is it actually?
It's Guy Ritchie getting rid of this is not a funny movie. This is not a.
I don't believe you.
You gotta check it out. This is not a Guy Ritchie comedy. It's a much darker and serious Guy Ritchie, and it's similar to The Last Duel. It's got the Rashomon storytelling structure.
What? Oh my god!
Love Jason Statham. Like, this is kind of a biased thing because he's one of my favorites, but it's a. I think it's very rewatchable because it's just so cool. That's it. It's just such a cool movie. I can't say it's one of my top 10 of the year or whatever, but it was a lot of fun to check out, and it's very different from Guy Ritchie's usual stuff, minus Statham kicking ass, which is great, and that's kind of the norm for him. But yeah, that's one that got a mention as well. And then I'll finish my quick little spiel here with Spencer, which I think was really good. Probably my favorite score
I like Spencer.
of the year, and Johnny Greenwood had plenty. And obviously Kristen Stewart was just unreal in the film. So those are a few more little cheap throw-ins I gotta put in there.
Yeah, Johnny Greenwood, terrific year. Yeah. He had that, Tower of the Dog, and he had Licorice Pizza too, which there's not a lot of score in that movie, but when it does come in, it's really terrific. So Johnny Greenwood just continues to be amazing.
Yeah, he had the year. He definitely had the best year of anyone in movies.
him and Andrew Garfield.
Yeah, that's fair.
Maybe. Well, I guess we're at odds there because Tick Tick Boom is a no bueno.
You gotta still admit he did a good job. He gave a good performance.
No, Andrew Garfield is never the problem in any movie he's in. He's always going for it. He's got that twitchy theater kid energy, which comes like really into play here because he's playing a twitchy theater kid. So I just love Andrew Garfield so much. It's just great to see him thriving out here.
But with that though, Nick, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, it's good to be here. Looking forward to 2022. Some fun things coming out. So
yeah,
looking forward
for
to
sure.
it.
And we'll be back very soon with our most anticipated movies of 2022, which has kind of become a yearly annual podcast for us now. I think this will be like the third or fourth one we've done in the last little bit. So that'll be fun for sure, especially with all the great stuff coming out this year. So hyped for Moonfall in February.
Really looking forward to Morbius now coming out in April.
Yeah,
right?
April Fools.
Can't wait.
April 1st is coming out. But yeah, so we'll be back with that very soon. Until then, though, you can check out all our MovieBabble content on our YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, everywhere. But obviously the most important is the .com, MovieBabble.com. So check out our content there, and we'll be back next week talking all things movies.